Buenos dias, Gunners Collective TV. Back at it, you already know, like this. Welcome back, man. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Ding, put your notification bell on all so that way you're directing the direction of the dope content that I am kicking. And I highly appreciate all the support. I'm very humbled by it. So, Los Padrinos, Gladiator fights, Gladiator wars, right? Man, we've seen this happen in Folsom, or excuse me, in Corcoran back in the, I'm thinking about Folsom because of the riot, right? In Corcoran back in the days, in the adult facility in the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitations, there were gladiator wars. And there's been movies made about them. There's been documentaries made about it. And there's actually individuals that are content creators on YouTube that participated in those or were in the direct vicinity of what was going on, right? However you want to think about it, it's never a good look. But I myself know exactly what these youngsters were going through. Now, the reason that this is a newsworthy, and the reason why people are talking about it is because I think 20 or 30 officers that were working at this facility, Los Padrinos, who it's a very well-known juvenile correctional facility in Downey, California, Los Angeles County, right? Pretty well known. I did time with, well, anyways, they got caught up. The cops got snatched up. Someone whistle blew, right? Someone blew. They blew that whistle, and it's a good thing. It's a good, I mean, it's never a great thing to tell on anyone, of course not. You know, and for those that are hardliners and hardcore, oh, they fucking got those ratted. Hey, listen, man. You know, we're talking about children here. We're talking about a bunch of young knuckleheads that are heavily influenced and need guidance from adults, not to be placed in a situation to be bet on, to be beat up on, to put them in a situation with their enemies when they're outnumbered or when they're smaller than the next man, all for the benefit, the laughs, the chuckles of some adult, right? Adults need to be adults in an adult situation, and kids need to be kids. Now, these kids are in juvenile hall, right? So they're not there for being a nice guy. They're not there because they're the best kids on the block, but they are kids at the end of the day. And so I can see where the situation is hectic and wild. And it's been happening for a very long time. And now these guys are going to be held accountable. These COs are not going to get to be COs no more. They're not going to get to work in any facility in direct contact with any minors. And I appreciate that. That's what needs to be done. See, I understand the plight of what these kids were going through. So basically the backstory is, you know, the other day they arrested over 30, or they indicted and charged over 30 officers in this facility. And this is a very well-known facility. I've done time when I was a youth with a lot of guys that always talked about Los Padrinos. I've never been there, never been to that juvenile hall, but I remember that juvenile hall was talked about a lot. And there was another one called down in the LA area, man. Which was the other one that they were talking about? Central. They're always talking about Central Juvenile Hall. And when I was in Nellis, Fred C. Nellis in Whittier, you know, down in LA doing time, this is where these guys did time. They were hardened, man. They were pretty rough. You got to understand, this was back in the 90s. They'd come from these juvenile halls. These guys were straight killers. They were ready to get off where they were mad at. And I never thought about the situations they were in. You know, I went through my juvenile hall. It wasn't the best place to be. But one thing I could tell you is the officers there were pretty much on you. A lot of them were from the local community. And because it was a smaller juvenile hall, they weren't trying to make you guys fight. They weren't trying to make people, you know, not feed people. There were some situations where I seen some guys overstep their boundaries and snatch up a kid and do, you know, maybe grab him around the throat or whatever. And I thought, oh, shit, I don't want that to happen to me. You know, I was a young kid too. But it wasn't like what these guys were going through, these gladiator fights and gladiator wars. There's actually footage of these officers standing back, letting these guys fight it out. Now, let me explain to you a certain situation, a couple situations. You know, I remember when I was young and my tios, my uncles, right? There would be beef. We were little young knuckleheads kids, and we didn't like the kids from the other side of the street or the other neighborhood or whatever. There was conflict and there was wolfing back and forth. And my uncles were OGs, and they'd be like, hey, homie, fuck all that. Fuck all that wolfing and that bumping baking soda breath on the door. Hey, if you're mad, get off where you're mad at. I'm going to grab those youngsters over here, grab you over here, front yard, handle your business like men or kids, And then when you're done, shake it out, hug it out, do whatever the fuck you got to do, and stop the bullshit. Now, I understood that. We used to have in my neighborhood Friday night fights, right? My uncle, to this day, he still talks about it. He used to get his little lawn chair, put it in his front yard, kick back with his grill and a couple beers because he knew the local neighborhood kids were going to be getting off, right? In front yards fighting and shit. These were like set up gladiator fights. Now that I think about it, like, damn, what were these adults into? But I understood they were trying to teach us a lesson. It was kind of one of those situations like when your kid's smoking weed or out there doing stupid shit. You know, people look down upon the parent that allow their child to do certain things like drink or smoke weed in their home. But I understand the mentality of a lot of parents. They'd rather have them do it in their home where they could be monitored because they're going to do it anyways, rather than them doing it on the streets and getting caught up or, something bad happening to them. It's not good parenting. And I'm not here to teach anyone how to be a parent. But I understood the situation and the lesson they were trying to teach us, which was, hey, handle your business, do it like men. Shake hands and let the shit go, right? Because if it continues to be conflict, then guns get involved, knives get involved, lives get unalived and uninvolved, right? And that's just how that is. So imagine the situation that these youngsters were going through, and I'm sure this has been happening for years, and someone had to say something to finally bring attention to it because, there's a lot of people that go through this, and these youngsters are hardened. A lot of them are street gang members. They come from broken homes. They understand that snitching or telling, man, shouldn't even be in the conversation, right? So a lot of these guys just had to bite the bullet and take it. And I'm sure, man, there were situations where they had to fight gang members that were bigger than them. There was situations where they got jumped. And who do you turn to? Who do you ask for help when the officers are the ones inciting it, when they're the ones allowing it to happen? Now, how do I know that this is true and things like this happen? I was in the youth authority. Let me explain to you. Anyone who was in C.Y.A. could tell you, especially in the 90s, right? This shit was normal. It happened all the time. I'm not going to say no names, but I can tell you when I was in Fred C. Nellis, there was YCs. They called them youth counselors, YCs, and then there were GSs, which were the uniforms. They were the cop-looking ones, right? The GSs were not involved in compa business, in building business. They were kind of like for the school area, for the church area, for any movements, functions and movements within the facility, right? That's when you deal with the GS. If you needed to go to medical, they'll come pick you up in the van, take you to medical. If you need, you got snatched when there was a riot or a melee or something happened, a fight, they were the ones that came running in, macing everyone, snatching them up, taking them to the box, which was the hole. And that was that. So you didn't have much interaction with GSs unless you were causing bullshit and conflict. Other than that, they didn't say much to you. There were some cool ones. There were some bad ones. There were some that were there just to do their job. There were some there to incite shit. That's how that was. But the YCs were a little bit different. They had caseloads, meaning you had one-on-one conversations with them. They were the ones who ran the buildings. And some of them were no nonsense. Some of them were there for the right thing. They wanted to help the youth get out and get a job and help you with a parole plan. And then there were those that didn't give a shit. It was a job to them. Just stay the fuck out of their face, man. No harm, no foul, or there's going to be a foul harm to you. And then there were those that took the initiative to really, really beat your ass and do things. And yeah, it happened like that. That's just the way it was. I've seen so many harsh realities and harsh things in YA. Even to this day, it still boggles my mind. Like, did I really see that? Sometimes I think, nah, I'm making that shit up in my head. And I'm like, nah, nope. He was getting raped over there in that fucking laundry room. I seen that. And I seen the cops walk by a gang times, look in and keep on walking. But there were situations where I remember there was three officers, that were supposed to be there to help us facilitate a parole plan, help us, get our shit together in life, give us some knowledge we couldn't get in college. But instead, they were more concerned and worried about, not doing paperwork, not having an incident happen on their unit. So in some cases, because we were knuckleheads and gang members, we thought that was cool. Oh, these are the cool cops. Really, they weren't. The cool ones were the ones that were really trying to help us get our life together and get on a better track. But of course, when you're gang banging, when you're a part of that life, whoever's doing bad is good and good is bad. It's the matrix. It's reverse, right? And so there was these two cops and they were actually gang members. Anyone who was in Nellis can tell you the truth. I speak facts. A lot of the YCs that were there were still active gang members. They still were from barrios. They still were from hoods, Crips, Bloods. Oh, Paru! There was all kinds of shit going on, right? But there was these two in particular, and they were always together, and they would work our building 3 days out of the week. And I was on Kennedy Hall at the time. And this was in Nellis. It was a drug building, and which meaning they had a drug program. Their drug program was they hand out packets, and you had to fucking fill out yes, I am, no, I am not, right, and shit like that. That was pretty much the extent of the drug program. A lot of us were in the drug program because when we were in an NRCC or SRCC, the smart gang members we had an epiphany, right? And the epiphany was this: if we tell them that we're a drug addict and that we're heavily into drugs, they'll send us to a place like OH Close or, Paso Robles or even Nellis to some degree for some people. They wanted to stay local so they can get visits and do shit like that. But what they did in my case, when I told them that, I thought I was going to go to OH Close and kick it with the homies and the Bulldogs and whoop-de-whoop, blah, 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 all that. Nah, they fucking put a box under my door that said FCN, Fred C. Nellis, and sent my young ass down south. And you already know how that went. You've heard plenty of stories. I was from north. I was living down south. No bomb. Hashtag Joe, no bomb, right? No bueno. It was no bueno. So I was down there having to survive. So a lot of us being norteños down there, we depended on, the officers to do their job and to be on the lookout for what was going on. But when you're living that life, it's kind of like you're trying to duck and dodge, but at the same time be seen, if you understand what I mean. But there was these two cops that used to come and they'd work 3 days out of the week, like I said, and they would let us know straight up, like, look, if y'all motherfuckers fuck up on our shift, bones are going to be breaking. We'll just let you know. Both these dudes were Crips. Not going to tell you what hood they were from, but they were both on Crip, on 55, because they were both fiving. You five me, they were fiving. And no, Mama Bear, everything wasn't going to see all right. So when they came, we took this as an opportunity, like, oh, these dudes are relaxed. As long as we don't cause no riots or melees or nothing, make them do paperwork, we could do whatever the fuck we wanted. They were giving us cigarettes. I remember they provided us a lot of different things that we weren't used to getting. And anytime you can get something that you haven't been getting in a long time, that's cool, right? Cigarettes, things of that nature. And they allowed us to fight. They allowed us to fight behind the handball court. And in some cases, they'd facilitate the fights. They'd be like, now, which one of y'all essays is going to knock someone out today? Which one of y'all brothers is going to show these essays what time it is? This is the things that they were saying. And as youngsters, we were like, yeah, hell yeah. What's up, homie, right? Let's get it. Because we had the opportunity to handle beefs, to get off. But mostly, these guys were doing it because they wanted to be impressed. They were bored. They wanted to see youngsters fight. They thought it was funny. It's kind of like in the neighborhood when the OG homie tells the youngsters, hey, put on the gloves, and he's laughing in the backyard when they're hurting each other, right? It was kind of a situation like that. There was no one to run to, turn to, and these guys didn't care. Now, they didn't force us to fight. They kind of let us pick and choose who we were going to get off with, but there was an abundance of guys with their hands raised like, hey, can I go behind the ammo court? They were like, man, just do what you got to do. They'd stand against the fence and just watch the fight, and if you were getting their ass kicked, they'd be laughing, man, that motherfucker knocked you the fuck out, right? They'd be clowning. I started to realize about my second year in, like, these guys were utilizing us in a gladiator sense just for laugh, shits, and giggles. And a lot of us recognized that. So we just did the thing that we could. The only power we had was just to stop fighting on their shift. And it upset them. It upset them because they'd be like, oh, now y'all motherfuckers think y'all tough. Y'all think you're right. No, we don't think we're tough. We're just tired of you laughing. And when a homeboy gets beat up or a Southsider gets beat up or a black gets beat up, man, and needs medical attention, you don't want to give them medical attention because you don't want to be seen as the person that's doing this shit, that's allowing this shit to happen. Because, man, there was cases where I seen dudes get knocked out one hit, shaking and shit, and the cop be like, man, get your punk ass up. Man, imagine if I hit you. Like, you're going to prison. Motherfucker, you hit me, right? Or I'm stabbing the shit out of you. That was the mentality there. So we stopped. We just literally put our arms down and stopped. And they didn't know how to react. Eventually, there was a youngster that did come in the building. He was getting jumped on. They allowed him to get jumped on a few different times. And he went and told somebody. He was able to tell his mom at visiting. She talked to the warden. She talked to the superintendent. That's what we had. And these guys got moved and never came back on our building. And I remember there was a lot of dudes. This is the cool part. Even though they were happy and even though we took a stance, that dude was still considered a rat. And he got smashed one last time for good measure, right? And everyone gave him a kick. Everyone. It was like the movie Full Metal Jacket. Right? Even Private Joker got his. So that was that. So there was another individual there. He was actually cool. I like him to this day. What he did, and he let us know. He said, look, I'm going to let y'all motherfuckers handle your business. And it's not because I don't want to do paperwork, because I do paperwork good, right? He's like, I'll snatch you guys up. He goes, but I understand you guys got to get your little young asses, get all that testosterone about your shit, right? He says, I'm gonna let you guys go ahead and fight, do your thing, handle your business, but we're gonna leave it like that. But this was a cool. He'd bring us food from the streets, cigarettes. I felt he was real cool with me because, as Norteños, there'd only be like 5 or 6, maybe 7, or maybe like 8, 9, 10. Yeah, there were like 5 of us. There'd be like 6 or 7 of us on the yard in the corner, just sitting there, man. And all the other groups had packs of cigarettes, and they had it going on. They had, the better jobs. They had more action at this type of shit, and we didn't, because we were Norteños. We weren't allowed to work certain jobs in the facility, no kitchen. It was a cold existence, man. Cold existence. We thought we had a foothold in something, but we didn't have shit. That's the truth, right? And damn, it makes me think back. We didn't have nothing. Whatever little measly canteen we can get before the riot jumped off every time. So whatever, right? And he used to come over. He'd be like, hey, Northerners, man. And he'd give us cigarettes and try to look out for us a little bit extra because he knew we didn't have nothing coming. That almost caused conflict, but he killed that shit. He was like, man, I'll take your ass to the hole. He was a black dude too. He was cool though. OG. So I understand the situations of gladiator fights because I've seen it. I lived through it. I participated in it, in a C.Y.A. fashion. Now, what happened at Los Padrinos, these are younger kids, man. These are kids that, I'm sure were being forced to do this. And the video, I'm not showing the video here that I've seen the still shots. That's unfortunate, man. These cops are just sitting there. Someone's getting their ass whooped real bad and they need help. You don't understand. Some of these kids could have pre-existing conditions, heart problems. You don't understand when someone bigger than you hits you, they could break a rib, could puncture a lung. And I've seen it happen several times. They could have internal bleeding. And a lot of these cops will not take you to the medical facility or do anything for you. They'll just laugh about it, But I think what stands out more about the Los Padrinos, I can't say Padrinos. Okay. My Mexican is not as Mexican as your Mexican, I guess, right? But I could say Los Padrinos, right? But the Los Padrinos, what would happen is, these guys were betting or alleged to have been betting. And it's how stupid are these individuals, man, that work at these places? First of all, you're working around minors. So you understand that all eyes are on you. You're supposed to have the heart to want to help. I know if I was invited to a juvenile correctional facility, to a juvenile hall, man, I'm going there with the full intentions of positivity. I'm not going to tell them war stories. I'm not going to tell them, the bullshit. I'm going to try to uplift their spirits and help them to create a plan to do better and explain to them the other options there are to do better, right? Because I have a heart when it comes to the youth and understanding that I went and lived through this shit and I don't want to see anyone else have to go through what I went through. Not saying every story is going to end the same, but I know enough to know enough that, it's never a good look. It's never a good situation when you're young and you're locked up. And I understand, man, there's a lot of family things that go into it, situational, geographical situations, all that. And I'm a very understanding person, but that would be my take on it. So when I see other guys working at these facilities, men and women, and they're taking advantage of their situation or their power, to me, that's the ultimate true piece of shit. So I'm glad these guys got indicted, man. I hope that if they were involved in facilitating these gladiator fights between these kids, that they suffer for it because, it's just taking advantage. We hear all these things every day about PDFs and taking advantage of kids and this and that. But this is a pure situation of guys misguiding the youth and utilizing them for shits and giggles and to have fun and to bet. What type of man does that? This ain't a rooster fight, bro. This ain't a pit bull dog fight. Anyone who does that to anybody, who puts them in a position they don't necessarily don't want to be in, or, and even if these kids are like, yeah, I'll handle my business. They're just trying to be big and bad in front of their peers. But really deep down inside, they're not trying to do all that. So I'm glad that this indictment happened. I don't wish death nor incarceration upon anyone, but I'm glad that these kids finally have a voice to be heard because I'm sure, there are some that go in there that are not, they ain't got it like that. They don't fight good. They weren't raised that way. They maybe stole the car or got involved with the wrong kids, the wrong crowd. And they're the ones that are being victimized and taken advantage of, and I know some people are like, it doesn't matter. They're gang members. Let them do it. It does matter because they're kids before they're gang members. They're kids before anything, just like you say, like people say, I'm a man before I'm anything. Yeah, well, they're kids before they're anything. And they don't have the capacity to think for themselves. Not all of them. Some are a little bit more seasoned or educated than others. Some got an older soul. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. They're still children and they need to be protected. And this shit doesn't need to be reflected. That's just me. That's my mindset on this. But yeah, it was going down. They did indict 20 to 30 officers behind this. And I believe these guys are not going to get a slap on the wrist. They're going to get some time. And let me tell you what happens. They go to prison. First and foremost, they're going to go to prison. It's California. And if they do get prison time, it depends on their records. Some of these guys obviously don't have a record to work in a juvenile facility. They get vetted, or they should have been vetted, right? But if they do get prison time, depending upon the severity of how involved they were, because I'm sure a lot of people just knew and turned a blind eye to it, they're going to get a slap on the wrist without having a record. But the ones that were directly involved, seen on camera, allowing it to happen, or even participating in some of the brutality, they are going to be going to prison. They're going to go to an SNY yard. And let me tell you, when people find out they were a cop and that it involved kids, it's going to be all bad for them. So their situation is just starting. They're going to partake in what these kids partook in, but it's going to be on a grown level and they're not going to like it. Anyways, but, so I see these gladiator fight things, Los Padrinos, it's fucked up. But it happens. And it doesn't just happen there. I'm sure it's happening somewhere else in the United States right now or in the world. And it's unfortunate, man. I'm glad that these kids finally have a voice and they can avoid this. And I would hate to see retaliation. I would hate for these COs that work in there to take it out on the youth because their coworkers got fucked. I've seen it happen before, man. I remember one time when I was in Ellis, a lot of shit went down in Ellis. No, excuse me, Preston, right? There was one cop, he was cool. I mean, he didn't give a fuck, right? People know him, his name was Ferguson. He was cool, right? Fergie. And he had a lot of love for the Northerners. A lot of love for the Northerners. They did impress them, man. Northerners got a lot of love. Just like Southerners got a lot of love in where they were deeper at. And what happened was there was another officer that was bringing in whatever he was bringing in. And dude got caught up as a brother. He got caught up and he blamed Ferguson for it. Now, one thing Ferguson he was really about the kids, man, really showing love, right? And he never we tried to work him. Believe me, we would try to work him like, hey, and he was like, fuck you. But he was still cool, right? And this black dude didn't want to tell on the connect, so he blamed him. Ferguson, man, they did an investigation. They kicked him out of there for about a month. And I'm going to tell you, there was a gang of officers mad. They retaliated on all the brothers, man. Black dudes were getting broke off. They were there. Hey, I never seen more black dudes in Tamarack in my life, right? They were getting snatched up all behind these dudes looking out for their coworker. That's just how that was. Anyways, man, I just hope there's no retaliation or any of that. It's unfortunate that these guys, these cops, how stupid are they? They seen what happened in Corcoran. They seen how the feds stepped in, how the whistleblower blew that whistle, and they shut all that shit down in Corcoran with the gladiator fights, and how them guys, they got fired, reprimanded, some got time. Why would they continue to do this, man? It's the barbaric mentality of human nature. Barbarians, Vikings, bro, people that victimize, and in this case, these COs, these cops, they were victimizing. Anyways, with that being said, let me know what you think. Thumbs up or thumbs down. Heavy's going to be that head that wears the crown. I'm going to continue to strive, struggle, and strive for what I truly believe in. And that's the betterment of all people, man. I'm going to say a prayer for those kids, man.